Let me ask you, David, one of the issues that's come up with the DNA in this case is the defense wants the state to turn over all of the documents that the FBI has in relation to this ancestral DNA search that they did. They basically did this big family tree of Bryan Kohberger, and that's how they eventually figured out that it was him, they say. And so far, the state hasn't wanted to turn it over, saying, look, these are extended relatives, they have nothing to do with the case, and at the end of the day, we had the match from the knife sheath. Do you think that they should have to turn that over? I mean, do you think that's a big deal?
They should have to turn that over. They should have to turn over all the methodology. That can be done under protective order so that anybody in the family who thinks that their privacy might be, impugned or invaded won't happen, because there'll be an ironclad protective order that the lawyers will observe. But I just did want to say about the fact that he may have an alibi and there may be other suspects and so forth. I believe that as long as the DA believes in this case, my point was the grand jury indictment that you asked me about, that I believe that the grand jury, if the DA wants to bring the case and they believe in it, even if this indictment got thrown out, even if there should be exculpatory evidence that wasn't presented to that grand jury, that would be ordered to be presented to the new grand jury. My point was just that a grand jury would indict this case. Then, of course, when you get to the trial phase and the motions, of course, all the exculpatory evidence, all the Brady information should be turned over, must be turned over. And this DNA, every single bit of it, every bit of the work that they did, every bit of the experts' analysis has to be turned over to the defense attorney so that there's a fair trial and so that they can do their own examination, including get a little piece of the DNA so that they can have their independent or defense examiner investigate, look at it, do the same test that the prosecution or the FBI did.
Yeah, I
love a prosecutor who crosses over to the right side, okay?
Right, yeah.
I just do. But
well, I do think there's this misconception, though, that everyone thinks that, everything's going to be out there at this point. I mean, sometimes stuff doesn't come out till trial.
Absolutely.
I mean, we don't have to have everything in the documents yet.
Absolutely. And to David's point, I was digging up this whole, this it just wasn't settling with me that the state is not turning over this FBI stuff. As David said, they should. And the FBI, under certain circumstances, asks for NDAs from local law enforcement when they are involved in investigations. They don't want their methodology out there. So they ask. So I wonder.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, me neither. I just learned. And so I wonder whether there's an NDA in this case. And that's why the state's just has a death grip on it.
I wouldn't be surprised. They want everything to be secret. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Just real quick, we only have 30 seconds left. I'm curious, Sara, do you think it's strange that nothing about motive has come out yet on either side in any of these filings? We've heard all sorts of stuff, DNA, but we haven't heard yet why.
Right. And, we better hear why. I think every juror wants to know why, even though motive is not an element of murder or any crime. What is this connection? I mean, so far the connections we've heard of have been really just nothing burgers, that he followed two of the girls on social media. So what? I mean, I follow a lot of people I don't even know I'm following, so they need an explanation, and they really need to. I think the lack of evidence matters as much as the presence of evidence matters. And when we're talking about exculpatory, it's not just the presence, it's also the absence. Yep. There is not a single bit of biological matter anywhere that, in his car or anything. And people are saying he cleaned up, but there's no evidence of a cleanup.
But you are a defense attorney. That's your job to find those parts of this. I mean, if you read the probable cause.
I'm not looking for biological matter.
No, but there's a there's a lot there, though. I mean, with the cell phone data, the cell phone being turned off.
I'm talking about forensic. I'm talking about biological matter from force lanes.
But maybe he just knew how to clean up really well.
But see, in the state's papers, the state says there is no explanation for this lack of evidence, and cleanup is an explanation. So that's why I'm saying, if there was a cleanup, we would have learned something about there was a cleanup. He had bleach, or he had whatever. And so that's the problem. It's 8 hours later they show up. This is a party house. We don't know who was there. And the house, all they get is a latent footprint. What is he, hopping, or he's one-legged? I mean, one latent footprint and the sheath. So there's a real void here of forensic evidence.
The sheath is big, though.
The sheath is touch DNA, which is problematic in the world of DNA.
It's going to be interesting. Sara,
yeah, it will.
You're always helpful explaining it. David Katz, thank you so much.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.